Look, there is a website called Reddit, and on one of the subreddits, one of the pages within this website Reddit, there is a place called Enough Trump Spam. Reddit became overrun with just literally seemed like spam. I've been using Reddit for almost 2 years, and it never been like it was, or like it has been the last couple months. And it's probably a good thing that there was a bunch of spam because it forced me to quit going on the website so frequently. It also forced me to learn a lot about the website, like how to download a Chrome extension that allowed me to block the Trump spam after months of it. I don't know if it's still like that. It'd be interesting. I guess I could always go to it and see what happens when I go to the front page of the internet in incognito mode. Politics, science. Oh, there is. Users claim Google is putting Trump emails in their spam box. That's from the Donald. There's just so many awesome things on the front page. Colorblind brothers overwhelmed by seeing color for the first time. A robot literally slipping on a banana peel. Snapchat's face swapping while vaping. California sea lion tearing apart a thresher shark. It looks like there's not as many Trump posts as there were. It was a big deal where apparently Reddit was going to change their algorithm so that the Trump spam wouldn't keep showing up like it was. I was under the impression that they sticky posts and it forced them up in the algorithm. Whatever, I guess that's what they changed. But here's enough Trump spam posts. Reminder: this is Trump's campaign spokesperson. Baby gorilla and baby chimpanzee. Of course, I want to see that. Explain like I'm 5. Why is the AR not an assault rifle? Shower thoughts. If I wore a British flag sweater while in the UK, people would assume I'm a tourist. If I wore an American flag sweater while in America, they'd assume I'm a local. Legalize weed already. Laser cutting etching my way towards a prettier airplane cockpit, aka holy butts. I bet I can make this look better. So, here's the Donald post. Escaped ISIS sex slave testifies to Congress. If a country as strong as your country cannot protect the citizens in Orlando or in Belgium or in France, how come a small minority like us can protect ourselves? So there is still some Trump spam. I like the Sanders here. You got some, let's go Black People Twitter, Bikini Bottom Twitter. So there's not nearly as much Trump spam as there was. Crazy idea. Every time Congress gives himself a raise, they have to raise the minimum wage by the same percentage. I like it. Then there's all these like product placement posts, which are funny. Because I'd rather say that they're funny than depressing. They're a necessary evil, it seems, at the moment. Clinton's email server ran without security. This is Hillary for prison sub. There's a Tinder post. Here's another the Donald. Based Farage is not the polls. Based Farage, stop posting about his concession. So there's still some Donald spam. Or Donald posts. What are you gonna do about it? Users claim Google is putting Trump emails in their spam box. talking about this being the first email they'd ever seen from their campaign trying to fundraise. Now they're fundraising. Before they were bragging about how they didn't need to fundraise for them. Then they turned into, needing to fundraise. So I wanted to read. I watched the Analyzing Trump Logical Fallacies video. It was awesome. It's incredible. This is the anti-business president who's been good for business. Obama on free trade, regulating banks, and why his daughters won't work for Wall Street. A little after 2:30 p.m. on Monday, June 13th, we sat down with President Obama in the Oval Office, which is exactly the range of yellow, taupe, and beige we all know from television, but smaller than expected. It's an old building after all. Obama offered coffee to the three of us conducting the interview. John Micklethwaite, editor-in-chief for Bloomberg, Megan Murphy, Bloomberg News, Washington bureau chief, and Bloomberg Businessweek editor-in-chief Alan Pollock. He touched briefly on the mass shooting in Orlando before quickly switching gears. All right, let's talk about the economy. Bloomberg Businessweek. The stock market has tripled. Profits are very high, and yet you still have this label of being an anti-business figure. How do you look at that? Obama says, well, first of all, toward the end of my second term, I think among the business community, there's maybe a greater acknowledgement, a less grudging acknowledgement that we steered through the worst financial and economic crisis in our lifetime successfully. Certainly more successfully than many of our peers. We're now 10% above the GDP pre-crisis. In Europe, for example, they're just now getting back to even. So I came here to read. I didn't even realize it was freaking Obama. I mean, who wants to hear me read Obama's words? So I just Control F'd. The interviewer asked him, the basic facts seem to be out there that free trade offers real advantages, but people aren't getting it. They're revolting against globalization, not just with Donald Trump, but Brexit or Marine Le Pen. They don't accept the stuff about immigration. Have the politics of selling that message changed? My argument has been that the reason people are resistant to the free trade argument is because global elites have been inattentive to the issues of wages, incomes. My argument has been that the reason people are resistant to the free trade agreement, or the free trade argument, is because global elites have been inattentive to the issues of wages, incomes, and opportunity for ordinary people. If you're selling globalization and saying it's great, even though each year, not just in the United States, but across the advanced economy, you're seeing more and more of a winner-take-all economy, where not just the top 1%, but the top 0.01% or 0.1% are getting a larger and larger share, then yes, it's going to be pretty hard to make the argument that don't worry, this is great for you. And this is another area where sometimes I find myself arguing with my friends in the business community. The issue is not resentment or class warfare, or that somehow we want to level everybody down rather than lift everybody up. The issue is that if in fact automation and globalization do have a tendency to create vast wealth and opportunity for a very small, highly skilled set of people, and have a tendency to create a larger and larger group of folks who feel redundant in the economy, and if you don't pay attention to that, then people will rightly resist. They will understandably say, I'm not getting a good deal here. Is that what Trump is tapping into? Look, I think that the temptation in that circumstance is to resort to nativism and nostalgia, in the sense that these are the things that are now out of control and I want to take control back. And that can be true on the left, and it can be true on the right. But I continue to believe that the majority of people, whether in the United States, in Europe, or certainly in rapidly advancing parts of the world like Asia, those folks recognize that the world has shrunk. And that if the rules are structured properly, this gives them more opportunity, not less, to succeed. I think that most people still understand that. If you talk to the younger generation here in the United States, they're not knee-jerk anti-trade, they're not anti-globalization. If you look at surveys, it tends to be older workers who are feeling displaced, who are attracted to this notion of let's pull up the drawbridge and shut everybody off. But if we are to succeed in shaping a sustainable, growing, prosperous, integrated world economy, we have to pay attention to the trends that push toward greater inequality and find ways to modify those tendencies, and we know how to do it. We know that if we're investing in education, early childhood education, college, making that cheaper and more affordable, then workers are going to have more opportunity. We know that if we have higher minimum wages, then they'll get a larger share of the fruits of all these amazing new innovations in globalization. We know that if we have stronger labor standards and workers have more of a voice, that's going to make a difference. There were a bunch of decisions that were made back in the 30s by FDR and then again later in this country in the 60s that were fiercely resisted by business, but essentially created a social compact and a social welfare state where people said, okay, I'm seeing the benefits of innovation. I'm seeing the benefits of capitalism. I'm seeing the benefits of trade. Well, we just have to update those for the 21st century in the same way that in previous eras we updated those for the shift from agriculture to industry. And that's going to require some foresightedness, not just in the public arena, but also in the private sector. You know, if I am a CEO in a boardroom right now, I should be thinking about how do I make sure my workers are making a decent wage? And if I'm a shareholder, that is something I should be paying attention to, too. Because if you're not, that's when you start getting the kinds of political pushback that you're seeing in the United States. That's how you start getting a Brexit campaign. Over time, you'll strangle this goose that's been laying you all these golden eggs. Share the eggs. Do you have any desire to run a company yourself? Well, I've said this before and I think surprised a lot of people, but if I think about what would stir my passions had I not gone into politics, it'd probably be starting some kind of business. The skill set of starting my presidential campaigns and building the kinds of teams that we did and marketing ideas, I think would be the same kinds of skills that I would enjoy exercising in the private sector. Now, I'm always careful about drawing too many easy parallels there because sometimes there are CEOs who come in and start explaining to me how I should be running the presidency. And I sometimes have to stop them and say, all right, one, I appreciate your advice, but imagine a situation in which half your board and management were actively trying to get rid of you and prevent you from accomplishing anything. And you had 2 million employees and you couldn't fire a large portion of them. And your competitors weren't simply promoting their own products, but were continually saying how your products were the worst that were ever invented and will cause a civilizational crisis. If you pull that all together, you've got about half of what I'm dealing with on a daily basis. What industries would you think about going into? Well, you know it's hard to say, but what I'll say is that just to bring things full circle by innovation, the conversations I have with Silicon Valley and with venture capital pull together my interest in science and organization in a way I find really satisfying. You know, you think about something like precision medicine, the work we've done to try to build off the breakthroughs in the human genome, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read that. Does it annoy you then that the guy who wants to go back and is America's most successful businessman, at least by his own reckoning, is Donald Trump? Well, there's no successful businessman in America who actually thinks the most successful businessman in the country is Donald Trump. I know those guys and so do you, and I guarantee you that's not their view. And then you can always listen to it yourself.
Very quickly, if anything happens in the next 10 days that means whatever you say doesn't look correct,
yeah, increasingly going to be employed in the service sectors. Manufacturing jobs are coming back. Do have a tendency to create vast wealth and opportunity for a very small, highly skilled set of people, and have updated those for the shift from agriculture to industry, or the shift to a global economy, would be the same kinds of skills that pushing anything, and you had 2 million employees, and you couldn't fire a large portion of them, but that I find really satisfying. Medicines that are unique. Entrepreneurship Summit, the last one that, you know, when you talk to and America, is this notion that you get a good idea and you a little bit of money, and over time you can see a complete transformation. And if we ever lose that, then interns and young people who I talk to, that as tough as things seem right now, do
Okay, I
not
can't find the part where he talks about Trump.